Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coding to Think. With me today, I've got Samantha. Samantha is a true technologist. She has worked as an enterprise architect, building complex systems for some of the large corporations in South Africa. Um, she has helped her clients make best decisions as a consultant. Samantha, how are you doing?
Hey, Sexy, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
I started out actually as an IT trainer. Most people don't even know that about me. Um, I started studying information technology when everything else didn't work out for me. When I finished school, I was so tired of all of the scientific subjects like math, science, those types of things that I decided I wanted to do fashion design.
Mm.
And I was so hopefully pathetic at it. And the last thing I wanted to do was look at code. I just didn't want to look at a for loop or an array or any of those things. And we were doing Pascal programming, and I was just like, I don't want to hear about it. I want to be like the people in The Bold and the Beautiful who design all this beautiful clothes. I want to host fashion shows. I want to be in the spotlight. And then I got into fashion design, and I was so hopeless at it that I didn't know what else to do with my life. And I was like, okay, I guess it's back to university, and this time it's information technology. So
Mm.
I started studying IT again. And while I was studying, I started working as a trainer at a computer training institution in Sunning Hill called Dynamics Training Center.
Mm.
And I was training the Microsoft.NET call it platform. At that stage, they were phasing out the traditional VB.NET. What was the old platform called? I don't remember the old Microsoft stack though.
Yeah.
And they were introducing Microsoft.NET.
Mm-hmm.
So the traditional language, I think it was VB6. Yeah, they were phasing out, Microsoft was phasing out VB6, and they were introducing MCSD.NET, Microsoft Certified System Developer.NET, though. That was just when .NET Framework version 0.1, I think, was being introduced. And that was when I joined the training institution. And after a while, I started training .NET. And one of the guys I was training was a director at a software development company. And he actually, we became, kind of geek buddies because we were both two nerds enjoying coding and talking about all these weird things. And the way it turned out is I was actually learning more from him than he was learning from me. So he decided to hire me, and he was kind enough. And that's where my journey as a developer started. I seriously got into software development starting with him, and I continued to code for all the different banks in the country. I've done projects as a developer for First National Bank. I've worked at the Home Loans Division. I've worked at Standard Bank for the Vehicle Asset Finance Division, building web applications using Microsoft.NET.
Mm.
Um, I worked through a consulting company building web services for NetBank. And, I just continued as a developer for 10 years until I started moving into architecture.
Mm.
And I first started doing solution architecture at ABSA when I made my transition from developer into system design and architecture. And I eventually moved to Liberty Life, where I completely worked as an architect. I had really good mentors assisting me and crafting me and molding me in architecture. I also made my first or had my first role in information security at Liberty with Julian Ramia
Mm.
introduced me to information security, and that was my first stint working in infosec. And yeah, since then I've been an enterprise architect and still am and still loving it.
What do you think is the best way to build systems while having security in mind?
And getting the right stakeholders aware, that's where it begins. I don't think that the onus lies only on the cybersecurity team. I think they're the guys that are in charge of placing the cybersecurity controls where they belong. But from an application perspective, there's so many possibilities and so many potential backdoors that could be created in the code. Now, there's many ways, in my personal opinion, um, that you could, place almost call it gates, but with agile development, we don't really follow a strict methodology per se, where we move from one phase to the next. But just somehow throughout the process, it should be the security requirements could be placed as actual requirements, even if it's an actual user story or an actual epic of some sort that gets created for placing security considerations up front. I think, your analysts, your business analysts, it's all about awareness. The different role players need to start building an awareness of whatever that requirement is. If I say I need an application that does A, B, or C, one of the first things whoever's documenting it or designing the system should think about is what is the potential security implication on this. So I think there needs to be a strong awareness kind of embedded into the SDLC, into the whole development process that helps ensure that those checks and balances are placed. The second thing I think is important for developers themselves to start understanding that hackers usually have strong coding skills as well. Most times they are developers as well. If you do white hat hacking courses and so forth, you're actually working with code and you're coding to get into whichever system or organization it is. So I think for a developer to code with security at the back of his mind and just fully understand some of the code that he's writing in his application, how it could become a backdoor for, malicious code entry, etc. So if you code as well with the coding mindset, there's simple rules, frameworks like OWASP can prescribe exactly how you could do it, but just avoiding stuff like SQL injection, placing inline SQL into your HTML or cross-site scripting. These days we make extensive use of JavaScript in frameworks. They also come with their potential security flaws. I think a lot of onus sits with the developers to make themselves aware of it. And, even more than antivirus, sometimes the way people code homegrown applications or apps, they could actually prevent a lot of the malicious attacks that happens.
Mm.
And once you drive that awareness and make it a practice, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah. What are some of the mental models you use to help you deal with complexity or even principles that you follow?
When you're an architect, you try to look at it holistically. You try to get a holistic view of the problem. And if we're speaking about complexity, for me, it doesn't make a difference whether it's a small feature that we're introducing or whether it's a brand new system or a mobile app version of something that already exists. I think when you start from the beginning, it always helps you, so to get the holistic view of exactly what it is you're trying to achieve always makes it easier. Now, with or without enterprise architect frameworks, there's just a certain kind of logical thinking process you could follow to help you dissect and break down the core areas of concern. So something I always like to do when I'm faced with any kind of, let's call it problem. Okay, let's just say that let's just broadly categorize it as problem. Even if the problem is just a small feature, I would always start with understanding what is it we're trying to achieve? Why are we doing this? What do we want to achieve? And then I would kind of mind map you know, exactly what the touch points are of this problem, so that in achieving what we're trying to achieve, we don't ignore other potential impacts that could come out of the problem.
Mm,
So even if it's just from drawing a circle on a board that says, this is my problem, what are the other touch points? And making a note of each touch point. And then dissecting each touch point that says, okay, do I need integration? Do I need to share data? Do I need to secure connection? You know, what exactly do I need to do um, for this whole picture to be cohesive? Because what you want to get to is a point of cohesion where whatever it is you're doing
mm,
makes sense to that problem and everything else associated with the problem.
mm,
Um, so that's kind of the thinking practice that I follow. I've steered away from strictly adhering to a framework. Although I do still love the Zafman framework, I feel that from all the architectural frameworks, it's the easiest to work with. And I think it's been adopted quite widely in all industries, the where, why, what, who, when type of thing, you know, starts off just as a business architecture framework, but now it's become a logical thing because it's exactly what it is, you know.
mm,
Ask all the right questions up front and gather as much information as you can. You don't even need to do hectic documentation,
mm,
but build that you know holistic picture first, so that whatever you're doing ties back to something that is actually supposed to be done. I feel like complexity happens when a lot of stuff gets done without significant thought or planning. um, we might, you know, have a workshop where business decides that they need something and we rush into this workshop and we immediately go into solution mode where, you know, we put on our best thinking caps and we're like, this is how we're going to do it. And we'll put this API, we need this data, we need that. And then, you know, we actually go out and build it, and
mm,
then somebody else comes along 6 months down the line and says, oh, I heard you guys were doing this, but did you know that it actually speaks to this system that does this, that, that? And we're like, no, because we were dealing with Tom, and Tom told us this is what he wants, and said that this is what we're going to do for Tom. And, you know, Tom didn't know about your stuff either.
mm.
And, you know, that's one of the ways complexity creeps in. So I think, you know, always keeping the holistic mental picture and having some sort of logical process that helps you identify each and every core aspect of the problem you're trying to solve
Yeah.
um, helps you keep, like, you know, like a mental track of what you're doing. That's something I do.
What are some of the measures that organizations can put in place to ensure that they've got adequate data governance to ensure that they get meaningful insights out of the data that they're keeping? Because I've also encountered this myself, where um, there's this thinking that just because there's data, you can instantly derive some sort of insights or meaning out of it, not realizing that the data has to be stored in such a way that it makes it possible for you to derive that insights and meaning from it.
Yeah, so I think for me personally, one of the starting points is always the enterprise data model. I feel people don't understand how critical the enterprise data model is. In fact, a lot of people don't believe it's necessary because they believe developers will build the tables according to what's needed. But there's three levels of modeling. And the one that's the most important, in my personal opinion, gets overlooked the most is the conceptual data model, because the conceptual data model is what aligns directly back to business. Now, if I have to oversimplify the description slightly, okay,
Mm,
um, if you create your conceptual data model, out of your conceptual data model, you will then produce your logical models.
mm,
Each entity in your logical model would tie back to your conceptual model. And every single physical entity, that is the databases that the developers create, every table needs to tie back in some form to one of the entities in the logical model. And
Mm,
if it doesn't, that's one of the ways that you can, um, find that you're creating bad data or unnecessary data. Um, and I think, having your concept, your enterprise data model with all three levels of modeling is so critical, but it often gets overlooked because of project urgencies or just the lack of data architecture in the organization. The second one is data governance at the data level. So often business doesn't understand the onus that lies with them to ensure the correctness and the completeness of the information that eventually lands in the warehouse. Um, and there are checks that need to be put in place. Not all front end systems capture fields correctly. Not all front end systems have the correct validations. So whatever is captured is eventually what comes out in your analytics or your reporting.
mm,
And business decisions are made on those reports. So if you've got bad data, then obviously you're making bad decisions or you don't have an accurate view of your actual position from an organization perspective. So there are quality checks that could be placed. There are from a code perspective, but more than adding those checks into your code, there should be some sort of governance process through people in the organization who look at the extracts or look at the rules of the data and approve those rules, and then that gets applied by the technology team. But a lot of it is actually a business function, and that lives with business because they actually own their information, they own the data. The technology team only implements. So to expect them to get it right is, or get the accuracy of their data right is a bit of a broad ask. So having data stewards, having data analysts on board, and having rules and principles around data conformance. I don't know about you, Tati, but I've worked on projects when I was a developer. And if I tell you some of the things I did with ETL, boy, some of the scripts I wrote for ETL, geez, I don't even want to mention the companies, but some of the problems that they're having could just be because of me right now. So, some of the stuff I did because it's bad enough to try and get it right from a tech perspective, but now you must still get the field values right. And it's just
mm.
so much pressure on the developer. And
Yeah.
it's not even my problem. How do I know how you want to see your field?
Mm.
Just tell me what you want and let me get it done type of thing. So
Yeah.
um, there's our roles are becoming so blended these days, but there has to be ownership somewhere along the line. There has to be accountability, and because data is now becoming one of the most critical business assets, business somehow has to step up and own and help with designing and defining how they want their data to exist, the same way that they design other products.
Mm, mm, yeah. If you are not doing what you're doing, like if you're not an information technology consultant, um, going into organization as a with someone with experience as an enterprise architect and developer, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think it would be something that adds more meaning in life. I don't think that it would be a career per se. I think if I wasn't doing this, um, I would want to do something that helps others. And for me, the biggest, gift you could give to somebody is knowledge. So I would try to help other people. I would be doing something that's helping people learn, especially with technology, all the possibilities that you could use it for,
Yeah.
um, and just get everybody on board and just see everybody, having a chance and and making the most of the opportunities that's available now. I think that's what I would like to see and what I would definitely dedicate my time to doing.
Okay. And with what you're doing now, what impact would you like to make with your work?
There's a couple of gaps in South Africa at the moment, especially from a technology perspective, but I think we've got a lot of skills,
Yeah.
but we don't always tackle the problem.
Mm.
And with recent global situations, COVID, and even before COVID, we already had challenges. Now challenges are just exacerbated. So I feel my next step in my journey is going to be to start using all the knowledge and skill that I have to create opportunities for South Africans to find ways to upskill and earn a living. We've got a high unemployment rate, which is not okay for a country who is very hardworking. So we've got hard workers, but not everybody is always aware, and not everybody uses opportunities correctly. So I'm gonna be spending, and you'll probably see it coming up quite soon, where I'm gonna be spending a lot of my time dedicated to building something that helps South Africans, enable themselves and give themselves the opportunities that they need through technology. So those are some of the ideas, without giving away too much, that I'm playing with at the moment. Either gonna work or it's not gonna work. Yeah, either gonna work or it won't work. But eventually, we can't just continue, just using all these skills for a day job.
I like that. I like the direction that you're headed in, and wish you the best of luck. And in closing, this was really great. Thanks for everything that you've shared with us today. I really appreciate it and making the time. Thanks.
Patsy, thank you for having me, and it was great chatting with you.